Hi everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Creative Proofing and Approval Best Practices. My name's John Ryan, I'm VP of Marketing at IntelligenceBank, and joining me today is Jess Brewster, IntelligenceBank's Senior Product Manager, who will be taking you through today's demonstration. So for anyone new to IntelligenceBank, we started in 2009, and our vision is to transform marketing operations by bridging the gap between efficiency and compliance. Our award-winning content governance platform includes digital asset management, or DAM software, that helps organisations unleash the power of their content and digital assets while solving all of those governance issues that every organisation faces. Our online brand hub portal to really bring your brand to life with online brand guidelines and end-to-end brand management. And our marketing operations platform to help you streamline campaigns, work faster, and stay compliant. We currently have more than 650,000 users globally and over 350,000 briefs under management. But really, we're marketers who make software for marketers. Now, today's topic is all about online creative proofing and approvals and our best practices to streamline those processes to ultimately help your teams produce better work faster. So what exactly are online proofing and approvals? Well, it's the project management function that helps you manage, track, and record the entire process, so your team never loses sight of where an asset or document is in the review cycle. Now, proofing and approvals are a cornerstone of all great marketing. The process itself doesn't get much credit when things go well. However, when anything goes wrong, it's the proofing and approval process, or lack of following the process, that is the function that gets the blame, along with the people involved. So this webinar is for anyone who wants to understand how they can improve their online proofing approval processes. If you are an existing IntelligenceBank customer, you're going to get some great tips today, as well as see some new features in action. And for anyone not using IntelligenceBank yet, these best practices will help you better design your processes and workflows too. Now, today's agenda, we're going to start by covering why proofing and approvals matter and the challenges most organisations encounter. We'll share our best practices for proofing and approvals, and then give you a demonstration of those best practices in action, so you can see the workflows. And then we'll end with time for questions. So the proofing process is important for any great marketing campaign, and as well as any great work. It's the step where you really get to test your new asset or campaign with people for the first time. And as part of that, we get feedback, helping us identify and fix any errors or mistakes. It's an opportunity to collaborate with others to improve or make work better. And this may include collaborating with designers, agencies, advertising, product experts, sales, or any other key stakeholders who can have valuable input. They might be experts in the product, or experts in what will resonate with the target audience. So proofing is very important. And separate to proofing is the process of work getting the stamp of approval. So depending on the campaign, there can actually be multiple levels of approval required before an asset is considered ready. And this includes approvals from people responsible for the design and copy, which might be part of the marketing or product teams, as well as the very important part of getting your work brand approved. Your brand is one of your most important assets. It's built on consistency, so you don't want to dilute your brand by delivering work that is not on brand. And in some cases, work will require legal approval. Legal approval is important to ensure work doesn't run foul of any laws or industry regulations. If that happens, it can result in heavy fines plus a detrimental impact to your brand. Some of the more heavily regulated industries require that organisations have a process for marketing approvals and show this process was used if they ever get audited. So having a smart process to ensure work is correctly approved is a workflow all organisations need. And at IntelligenceBank, we're obsessed with how we can make the approval process smarter and more efficient. So why do so many organisations find proofing and approvals so challenging? Well, there are 7 common challenges that pretty much everyone faces. The first being approvers are often very busy people. Creators want their feedback immediately, and that simply isn't always possible. It can be common for some work to require multiple approvers, which can create workflow challenges. As mentioned before, there can be many different stakeholders: design, copywriters, external agencies, product, brand, legal, other stakeholders. And multiple approvers create the challenge of different approval workflows depending on the type of work. Some work may require one level of approval, others might require 3 or 4. And what happens then when someone down the end of the line asks for a change? Does everyone need to review that change? So obviously that will depend on the change, but organisations do have this challenge of how to best set up their approval workflows so that they are both efficient and compliant. If a change is required at any stage, then you will need to deal with the challenge of multiple versions of that same asset. This is particularly an issue if you're using email for approvals, but it's still a challenge if you're using online platforms where each version is stored as a separate file. Organisations often struggle with tracking these different versions and different comments together. People can get lost on the wrong version, confusion ensures, and if anyone on this call has worked on a campaign or asset that's worked up to 15 or more versions, you definitely know what I'm talking about here. Another challenge is sometimes people have a tendency to skim work, particularly if they have read a similar version before. It's important to think about how we can make it easier to highlight changes in versions to reduce the impact of skimming. Most marketing and creative is digital these days, which means proofing and approvals are usually linked to rich media files. Often these files can be too large to email, and not all online storage solutions have adequate approval systems. Plus, now more than ever, we have the challenge of dispersed teams and more people working from home, which means it's a lot harder to get everyone into a room to review a video that was too large to email. We do still see that many organisations are simply challenged with their own antiquated processes. For example, trying to do proofing approvals in emails using attachments, or trying to use an approval system that is only set up with one workflow or linear workflows. Timeliness is one of the big challenges for proofing and approvals. On the one hand, we want to make sure the work is perfect. On the other, we have deadlines. So the challenge of reducing time comes down to reducing those feedback cycles and approval times. And finally, there is the challenge of tracking and auditing workflows, which many organisations struggle with. That includes your own teams knowing exactly where the approval workflow is, as well as how to prove the right steps were taken if you do ever get audited. So you can see there are many challenges. So what are the best practices to overcome these? We have 7 best practices that we're about to share. Best practice number 1 is to use alerts that bring people back to the platform. In other words, don't try to do proofing and approval in emails. In fact, don't even share assets via email if you can. And I'd include Slack and Microsoft Teams on the do not use list for proofing approvals as well. Emails are problematic, and most of the challenges we just covered are really just symptoms of people trying to do their approvals via email. People get left off conversations, it's hard to tell what was missed, and emails make managing multiple versions and tracking very difficult. So the best practice proofing and approvals starts when you send alerts to bring people back to your digital asset management platform. People receive the alert via email, and it's as easy as one click for them to access the asset with rich tools to do proofing and approvals properly. Best practice number 2 is to keep everything on one platform. We also recommend that you do all of your proofing and approvals in the one platform, so you can track all of your projects and all of your different apps where you make your projects together using that same process. So creative work and marketing campaigns can come in the form of images, videos, documents, presentations, and sometimes the tools we use to make those assets may have some level of proofing features. So we've probably all used track changes or comments in word processors. However, it is very hard to keep track of all of your work by managing it within the individual applications, which is why we recommend a single platform that is part of your digital asset management system. There are so many benefits to this. It means you get more control over sharing. You can see what is in draft or approved in the different stages. And you can see all of the comments for all of the different versions in one area, which is something you simply can't do when doing it at the application level. Best practice number 3 is to encourage feedback. We want to make it as easy as possible to capture feedback on each version. So comments are one way of doing this, and comments are particularly good when they are linked to a specific area in the asset that the comment is about. Annotations are also fantastic, particularly for digital media. For example, highlighting on the image exactly what needs to be changed. And if you are getting feedback for videos, it's ideal if you can link your comments to a specific frame or time period to help the editors know exactly when you were talking about it. Best practice number 4 is to keep all of your versions together. And Jess is going to show you shortly how good it is to quickly move between different revisions of an asset and the power of having all of the notes associated with each revision together. It makes a huge difference for both proofing and approvals because reviewers can see how the work has progressed with each revision, if their comments were actually addressed or not, as well as see everyone else's comments so they can make comments on those comments and have a good discussion. Now, to get the most out of your proofing process and solve the challenge of skimming, best practice number 5 is to make it easy for people to compare different versions together. The best way to compare versions is simply to see them side by side. And this is something IntelligenceBank does really well with our latest releases. You can see all of the comments, but you can also just see your 2 different versions or multiple versions side by side. And we will soon be releasing a new Smart Compare feature that automatically highlights any changes in documents without you needing to do anything, which is really cool. Best practice number 6 is to map your workflows. This is really where things get interesting because the best practice is going to depend on the exact needs of your organization. So sometimes what creative work really just needs is feedback rather than approval. And this is where feedback loops are perfect. Creative work can be tested, commented on, and collaborated on to become better. Next, you have your simple approvals, which is basically submitting an asset for approval to one person, which can be pretty common. Next is multi-step approvals and involve approvals going up a chain. And what's interesting here is the logic for change requests and how far back down that may need to go down the chain. And finally, there are conditional approvals where the level or order of approvals is going to depend on the criteria, which could be the type of campaign or the cost of a campaign or if it's a new product. So a few tips here. When you know your workflow, it can be possible to make templates to make things easier. It's also very good to limit the number of versions that you have in a workflow. It's not always a good idea to have everyone involved on every version. That's particularly a challenge that agencies can struggle with tracking all of the versions as well. And Jess will be showing you some of these loops shortly. And best practice number 7 is to track everything. It's important to have visibility of where all your work and assets are in the approval process. It allows a business to know what is approved, what's still pending, as well as the power to speed up approvals that may be waiting on approval or stuck in a loop. So IntelligenceBank does this automatically with all the tracking, as well as make it super easy for you to run compliance reports to show that you do have a process and that exactly what happened within that process. And Jess will show you that shortly as well. So on that note, I'll hand over now to Jess to take you through how we do proofing and approvals at IntelligenceBank. And just to set the stage, Jess has received an email asking her to approve some work. So over to you, Jess.
Perfect. So as you've just seen, I've now received some emails that are notifying me that I need to go in and provide my feedback or potentially my approval as well on some new campaign materials. Now, obviously, by the time I've received these emails, this campaign has already gone through an approval process during the creation of the creative brief. So the marketing team is already at a stage where they're creating the content that we need to, for instance, celebrate or contribute to a new product launch in time for Christmas. Now, as part of this process, we've got a quick intro video that our designers have put together that's going to be the start of our videos moving forward. We've also got an image that's the background to our Christmas email campaign. And we also want to update a PowerPoint presentation for an upcoming webinar that's featuring our latest products. So as a marketing manager, assume I've switched careers a little bit. I've been sent a few email alerts to let me know that I have items that I need to provide my feedback on. One of these is about our launch video that's been updated with a new version based on some feedback I'd previously requested. Now, that example, which is what John showed you earlier, in there's an option to select a markup comments button. So I've clicked that and that's directed me to the platform and the page you can see on the screen here. Now, once I open this page, I'm going to play my video to check that if the changes that I have requested in the previous version have actually been completed. I can also annotate and add more feedback if I want to, for instance, if there are things that I think we need more tweaking. In this instance, though, I've watched my video and I'm actually happy with the changes that have been made. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly pop into my response tab and approve this asset and submit my response. So that's actually the first of my tasks done. What we're going to do next is we're going to have a look at the Christmas background, so the one that we're using for our email campaign. Now, as you can see, I've accessed this and I can see that we've already had quite a few revisions of feedbacks. This has already gone through a few loops between myself and, most likely the asset creator, so our designer. And we want to see where we are in the process. Now, using the revisions tab, I can quickly go and see the history of the asset. So from when it was originally created through the revisions and feedback loops to where it is now, and that's up to revision 3. I'm actually going to go in and compare these two just side by side so I can see what that looks like and just more easily be able to tell the difference between the two files. Now, obviously, these two files are quite different, but I actually don't think I'm happy with the changes that have been made in revision 3, and there's going to be some more work that I think needs to be done. So in this instance, I'm going to pop straight into my markup tab. And I'm going to add some annotations here just so our designer is aware that, there's just some more work that needs to be done. I'm actually going to come in and I'm going to directly tag our asset creator using our new app mentions tool, just so she gets an alert directly to let her know that some changes need to be made. So if I want, I can obviously continue to annotate. I can give my feedback on other areas of that. But in this instance, I think that's all I need to do for this second task. So I'm just going to leave that there and then jump into our presentation that we also want to work at. So you can see here, I'm now in a folder within my DAM, and I have a few Office online files. Now, if I wanted to, I could actually add a new Office file. In this instance, though, we do have an existing one that we want to improve on. Now, if I have team members that I also want to have a hand in creating the draft of this document, I can share that link directly via our email link feature so we can all contribute content to the relevant slides. For now, though, I'm just going to go ahead and click the edit file action. That's just giving me a warning that it's taking me slightly out of the platform momentarily so I can contribute to this in Office directly. So now that's appeared, I can make some changes, if I need to make any adjustments to the presentation. You can see here, obviously, those of you who joined us at the start will recognize this, but this is the presentation we're just going through at the moment. But, maybe I want to remove that phrase and I'm going to adjust this slightly so the styling fits. Perhaps I might want to make other changes, but I can come in here and collaborate. If any other users have that link as well, this is all live, so they can do that too. You can see it's automatically been auto-saved. and I can use all of the Office features that are available in Office Online. Now I'm going to decide, yeah, okay, I'm happy with these changes for the moment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just jump back into the platform. Now here I do have two options. I could either keep it as a working file, which means that, perhaps it's at a state that it needs more work. We need other contributors to come and add more content into it. So it's more of a draft as opposed to something that's ready to be used by other users. For now though, I'm going to click save so I can put it through an approval process. So as this is a file that's going to go through, be seen by quite a lot of people, it's just lovely to see you all here today. I'm going to go through and I'm going to add in a few different approvers that we need to have a look at this asset. So these are the ones who are going to give their final approval on, if this is ready to be seen by other people. And I'm just going to add in little text, this, and submit. Now, what's going to happen now is that all of those users, so our social, digital, marketing approvals, and our legal approval as well, they're going to get sent an email alert that they have something that needs to be approved or looked at. So they know now that they need to give their feedback on an item. So I'm going to jump into my approvals module. And if you, just imagine that I am now one of the people who received that email, they can come in, they can either access it through our workflow list page or through an email directly. Now, when I load this page again, so here we have our review request page. You can see on the right here, I have all of the information I need about the asset and about the actual approval, including the approval content, and also an instance of, the approval stages that this is going to go through and also who is going to approve it. So you can see the stages that it's going to go through. Currently, we're in stage 1, obviously, as I've only just submitted this approval request. Now, on the left here, I can have a look at my file, but perhaps I spot something else that actually needs to be updated. Perhaps, the changes I make, I could have added a typo. Obviously, I probably messed up some of the formatting doing my example earlier. But all I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump in to our edit in Office Online again and load that file. So now, as we're back in Office, the environment again, this is going to load. Just going to switch these so they're a little bigger because that's why that was slightly off. And perhaps I want to remove the word portal, for example. And, I think that's, they're the changes that I want to make. Everything else I think looks pretty fine. So let's just go back in. And now, once again, I'm given the option to save or continue to edit. Because I was just tweaking some minor adjustments, I am just going to save this. It really depends on, I guess, the type of the change being made. If it was quite a large change that other people would need to kind of reapprove, then you might need to actually keep that open or done what I've just done. So now you can see we do have previous revisions available. Obviously, the one I've just created originally, and then the change that I just make then, where you can see I've readjusted the styling, and also the portal phrase has gone from there. You can also see in my preview here, we have a little print icon. Now, this is really useful if you do need to provide for compliance basis or evidence. I could export this revision with my comments and annotations included. And yeah, so I think that's everything I actually need to do for the moment. I'm happy with where I've left, especially this last one at. So it's currently going to be, sent off and approved for this instance on that social approver, and then eventually on the other stages that's gone through. So there's other 3 users. And yeah, that's everything I wanted to take you through today. So we've gone through 3 separate items. Now I'm just going to stop sharing and hand that back to John.
Thanks, Jess. So in about 10 minutes, Jess did 3 different workflows. So she approved a simple workflow for a video. She provided feedback for an approval request for an image, where she looked through a history of different images. She looked at the different comments, and she compared the versions and asked for a change. And then she did a collaboration on a Microsoft Office file, which was going to then have multiple levels of approvals and showing how you can see the changes within IntelligenceBank. And then finally, she showed what the board looks like and how you can see all of your different approvals in one view. So proofing and approvals can be fun and straightforward with these best practices, which were alerts, not emails, bring everyone back to the platform, which is your digital asset management platform, encourage feedback, keep all of your revisions together, make it easy to compare versions, map your workflows to build the right ones for your business, and track everything. If anyone on the line would like a personalized demonstration of anything we showed today, we'd be happy to assist. We can arrange that either by contacting your IntelligenceBank account manager, or if you are new to IntelligenceBank, you can send us a message via sales@intelligencebank.com. So that brings us to the end of the presentation. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. We do hope that you found it helpful and educational. And from everyone at IntelligenceBank, we'd like to wish you all a very Merry Christmas.